welcome to the SPSF Meadow Sub, and this is another kind of how-to installment that I'm going to do for you tonight. Just real quick, wanted to show you, since I'm working on this, how I paint and ballast this yard, for any of you who are interested in how to paint and ballast and track. So just thought I'd show that to you. It might take a little while as I go through the full painting and also the ballasting, so it might be a little bit longer, but there's not too much track either, so hopefully you'll be able to sit through the whole video. So here we go. First I'll show you a little bit of what I've done to the track since the last video. One of the things that I did obviously was I installed some feeder wires. Okay, so I just wanted to show you my technique of how I do feeder wires. And so the main thing is you need, when you have a lot of turnouts, you need feeder wires in front and behind the turnouts. And so my strategy, and this is something that I picked up from a friend, is I'll put power on both rails in front of the turnout here, and then I'll do it again just past the turnout on either rail. So you can see this, there's little wires sticking out there, and you can barely see where I put one there. And so that basically keeps this rail powered through here, and then it powers these two rails that get split up through the frog, and then this rail stays powered through here. So if you do that through each of your turnouts, you should have sufficient power through there. So I added some feeder wires there. I did it on this turnout here, and then I did it, you can't really see it through there, and then also up at this turnout here. So then after that I went through and tested it with a locomotive to make sure that everything worked. So after that, obviously solder everything, and then I go through with a file and make sure that things are nice and smooth through here, and then vacuum up everything and get it nice and clean for the painting. So before I paint, obviously this is an area where I've already laid and ballasted track, so, and have done a little bit of work, like with the diesel shop building that's usually sitting here. I removed it now so I could paint. But one of the things I do when I'm painting around areas that I've already worked on is I'll put this blue painter's tape over stuff that I don't want to get paint on. And then additionally, I have this little piece of cardboard that I'll hold up so I don't get things painted on behind it. And the paint that I'm using tonight is, I'm going to do two different applications. First, I've just got this basic Badger Model Flex Rail Brown. I like that. It's a basic brown for the rail and the ties. And then after I do that and give it sufficient coats, I'll add a little bit of grimy black to it and make this kind of a darker color, and I'll paint some of the ties that color to make it look like some ties have been replaced. So I'll show you how to do that too. Alright, so let's get into the painting. And apologies for the noise. I've got a really big air compressor. I'll show it to you. This is probably a little more than I really need for my airbrushing, but it does the trick, and so, but it is a little noisy. And then so I'll do that. Hopefully it'll be fairly fast, since I don't have a whole lot of area to cover tonight, and so hopefully it won't last too long. But just wanted to warn you. So one of the things I did, I shake this paint up really well. I added a little bit of Windex to it, and I also added a little bit of thinner because it looked kind of thick in there. Like it was starting to dry out, which is weird because I recently bought this. So just a precaution. So hopefully it works. It looks like there'll be enough paint in there for the little bit that I need to paint tonight. So put the cap on. This is just my basic Badger airbrush that I use for all applications. All right. So before I start the noise, just to let you know, what I do is I try to, in this situation, I try to ballast or paint both sides of the rail, because even though you're largely looking at this side of the rail, you might still be able to see some, especially on these tracks up here in the front. So I might not care as much about these tracks in the back, where your chances of seeing the other side of the rail is pretty slim, but I usually try to hit both sides of the rail. Just having that gleaming silver on the side of the rail is such a turnoff, so I try to get rid of that wherever I can. Another note, one thing I didn't do tonight, I didn't install, or yet I should say, I didn't install any of the ground throws yet. Sometimes I do this before I paint, sometimes after. It doesn't really matter. I think there's a couple advantages to doing it either way, I think. Doing it before you get it in place, you know where it is. You can paint it a little bit too, but then you risk getting some ballast in there, and it's a little tricky to clean out. But then waiting until after, you might get some ballast around the area, so I have to be careful when I'm ballasting to not get that area. So just pros and cons, but just wanted to point that out. So after I'm done with this tonight, the ballast dries, I'm going to go back and install my ground throws. So, all right, without further ado, I'll start the painting. And again, apologies for the noise, but like I said, I'm hoping it won't last very long. And what I do when I'm painting my track is I just kind of put that in my pocket, so then this kind of gives me free roam to paint here. So here we go. For some reason getting the pressure through, but now it seems to be working. So one of the things I do is just to test to see if I'm getting this paint out and the end now. So kind of have this brush set on one of the highest settings for this. So like I said, I want to make sure I get both sides here. With turnouts, you want to make sure that you get both sides of the rail, and then there's also on these Atlas turnouts a little metal plate here, and make sure to get. What I've learned is if you aim for painting the rail, you basically paint all the tires as well. It's always a good idea to kind of go over and make sure you get everything covered. Okay. Okay, come on, paint. Almost done. I don't know why this is not working. Okay. I'm almost done. Okay, I don't know why this paint is not working very well, but it's getting really annoying because I should be done by now. I just keep having to clean off this brush a little bit. My thought is maybe it's a little too thick, like I mentioned. I didn't add enough thinner to it. I don't know. All right, come on, guys. Okay, so what I did is I kind of went through and gave it a little second coat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some grimy black to the mixture here. Shake it up. Now this will take a little while to get through, but essentially what this does is this is how I paint ties that look new. Let's see. Okay, the paint's not working again. Let me make sure this is cleaned out. color changed a little bit more gray. And essentially what I do is I just go around and single out ties that I want to show as darker. Usually I do more on the main line because those are the ties that are more likely to be replaced. I'll kind of go back and do a few more ties like on these little spurs. You might not have as many, they might not be as dark, so I usually won't worry about those as much. With just a really quick action with the brush, you can usually paint 1 or 2 ties at a time. And I think I'll put some grime on these bumping posts. Yard tracks, again, probably aren't going to get as many ties replaced either. Let me just kind of do this. I'm going to turn off the air compressor because I'm essentially done at this point. Yay. Okay, I think we're good. It's really hard to figure out when you're done with this because it's like, oh, I want to do more, but then it's like, no, I really don't want to do more. So, okay, we're done. So I'm going to disconnect this. I'm going to bring this into the sink real quick and let it soak, and then I'll be right back. Be right back. All right, let's get this out of the way. Okay, so let's just do a brief check-in and see if we've gotten any questions so far. And by the way, yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask as I go along. And then I'll post this video on my Facebook page later. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Let's see. Chuck says, nice job, thanks. Jeremy says, what color paint are you using to weather the rail with? So again, I showed this earlier, but I'll show it again. I started out with just the basic Badger Model Flex rail brown. I like that. And then I added some grimy black to give the ties a more creosote look. Rich says, Harbor Freight airbrush. I have the same problem with mine. I just bought mine off eBay. It's just a basic Badger brush. It works pretty good because it's a single action external mix, so not a lot goes wrong with it, but I still have issues every now and then. So, but overall it works pretty well. I think the real problem was, like I said, the paint was kind of thick, and then also as I was running out of paint, I'm usually aiming down this way, and so it's hard for the paint to get into it. So every now and then I had to raise it up a little bit. So it's just kind of annoying because I could have gotten that done faster. All right, so let's go into the ballast. One of the tricks that I use with ballast is that if you ballast right after you paint, then the wetting from the ballast, I'll show you later, just you can rub the paint right off the top of the rail. So that's one of the reasons I like to do this if I can, right in a row. So I've got different colors of ballast here. I'm at the point of my railroad layout where I just kind of go with whatever I have left on hand here. One of my favorite ballasts that I like right now is this. Let's see if you can see this. This is by JTT. It's real rock. Works really nice, and it comes in these little bottles. When I bought these, I don't know, a year or so ago, they're kind of hard to find, but I really like them. The colors are good. This white mix I use for a lot of my industrial spurs. Beige mix is good too. So, and then this is a similar kind that's made by Bachman gravel. I bought this at the old Caboose Hobbies several years ago, and then they ran out of it. But this works really good too. It's real rock. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same as the JTT. It's just labeled differently. So what I'm going to do is I've got this interesting ballast that I thought I would use for the BN yard to make it look a little different. And then I was going to combine all of these into one for the rest of it. And see, obviously, I want to take up the tape before I get too far here. Since I'm done painting. And that way I can kind of mix the ballast together on this programming track that is part of the original layout. One of the things I was going to mention with painting ballast, it's easy to do, I think, because you don't have to be perfect. You know, it's essentially weathering it, and so you can make mistakes. It'll look fine. It's just supposed to be junky old track, especially this part with the yard. Okay, so I'm just going to pour this. I like using this little bucket, and then I use an old medicine like cough syrup cup. And then one of the things that this is the best thing to use is a nice round brush. See that? I'll show you what I do with this. Is when I get the ballast on there, I just spread it through and then just run the brush right over, and then it gets the rocks off the ties. It works really nice. I'll show you it in more detail. Let's go look at this end since I'll be working on that right now. And so ballasting is actually one of my absolute favorite things to do. I just love coming home and doing some ballast. It's just so relaxing, I think. I'm always sad when I'm done with the track project because I don't get a ballast anymore. So what I do with this is I just put a little bit of this in the in this cup, and I just go through and I sprinkle it, cover the ties really well, because you're going to come through with the brush later. One of the nice things about gravel ballast, real rocks, is that it does a really good job spreading around the ties, so you don't have to worry about it flying all over the place. It stays in there really nice. Since this will be a yard, I'm going to see how much ballast I have. If I could, I'd like to spread the whole yard with the ballast. If I don't have enough, that's fine. I'll just put some weeds and dirt and other things in there. But we'll see. We'll see how much I have. This stuff tends to go fairly fast. One of the things I would suggest if this is one of your first times ballasting is you might want to start out with just a small area of track before you start really spreading it out, so that you can see how much ballast you actually need to put on the track. Since I've done this a handful of times, I'm just going right at it and covering the whole place with ballast. So I should get a pretty good coverage here. So let's see, putting that, well, looks like we've got enough here. I'm going to try to put some in between the track. And let's try to cover the bumping posts pretty well too. So obviously it's not going to match perfectly with the programming track that I already have here, but that's okay. What I'll do is you know, it could be a thing where the yard was expanded or they replaced some tracks and they chose a different kind of ballast, and what I can do, since this track is on the outside, is it can be a weedier track, or there's a number of ways you can blend in tracks that have been here before. So not a problem at all. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've got a fair amount left, but we'll see how that gets us. So like I was showing you before without the ballast, what I do is I just take this brush and go right over it. And then if you've got some in between the rails where you really don't need it, like right here where this track's already ballasted, you just kind of brush it off. And then here on the outsides, I like to kind of brush it together. Just nice and easy. And then, so yeah, you just kind of brush it along, make sure the ballast ends up right between the ties. Sometimes when you're doing this, you'll start to get these little ridges on the outside. So what I do is I just tap it down with this brush and make it nice and smooth. Okay, now This is why I try not to use all of it at once. I've got some little areas here that could use a little bit more ballast. So I'll cover them up. Okay. And you just go right over the ties with this. Let's see if I can push a little bit over here. I had too much and not enough in that one area. There. So the goal is you don't obviously want any ballast in the rail. You also want to clean off the ties because you don't have ballast in the ties. So again, I'll flatten it out and I'll push it up against that track over there, blend it a little bit. Yeah, this is absolutely one of my favorite parts about laying track is just coming through and doing some nice ballast work. Flatten out that ridge there. Now I'm going to have to add a little bit of ballast this area here. Not a problem. Then I'm going to make sure I have good coverage on this edge. Since this track is directly on the plywood, you don't use as much ballast because you don't have the road bed, right? Like in other places where I have the road bed, and see, then you have to ballast the slope as well. So this goes a little bit faster. You don't have that. So yeah, again, I just wanted to do this video kind of impromptu, but I'll post it up on Facebook and then I'll try to put it up on my YouTube channel as well. I just wanted to show you, I get questions every now and then about people ask, how do you paint your track? How do you do ballast? So I thought, well, since I'm doing this project, I'll just show you. That way everybody knows. So here coming up on the switch, we got a little too much ballast. We're just going to try to shoot it back there a little bit. Not a problem. We've got a spot that needs some more up here anyways. You just kind of go back and forth until you get the right balance. Okay. And again, I like to brush it up against the edge here to get these stray rocks. Now after I glue this, I'll come back and vacuum up whatever loose rocks there are, but I like to get as many as I can up here. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just kind of run my fingers over the ties and get any of these stray ballast rocks, just to make sure that everybody's staying in line. I've got a few here, so I'm going to keep brushing them forward. So this different colored ballast, that could be like the BN ballast, for example, used in the yard, and then when I get up to the SPSF part again, I'll go with a nice beige color. And I'm guessing, let's see, I should have enough, since this did all these tracks, I should have enough beige to cover this, and then I might get into the white for the spur. So that's probably what I'll plan to do. Okay, so I'm gonna, as I've got enough, cover this part a little bit better up in here. These ties a little better covered there. Now, I want to make sure there's a few things with turnouts, and obviously, you know, every modeler will be a little different with this stuff here, but my theory is I try to ballast as much as possible around the switches. And part of the reasoning is because after the glue dries and you're done with the ballast, you can always go back and take a flathead screwdriver and pick the ballast out to make the turnout work. I've never had an issue where I've gotten a turnout stuck with that. And I want it to look like it's ballasted through there. But remember, we've got our ground throws that we have to do, so I want to leave a little bit of space there. And I actually try, right in between where the switch bar is, I try to get the ballast out of there as much as I can. So that way it doesn't get stuck. And then it should be pretty good after it's dry and I come check on it. So it's pretty simple. Okay, we're almost done with the BN yard. Just try to push that up there. So now we're kind of transitioning into the part where the SPSF will come in. And put a little bit more ballast in here. And try to blend this with the other track a little bit better. Oh yeah, there we go. That is looking nice. Run the brush through there a little bit. There's an opportunity where I didn't ballast very well that I could add some of this in here. So that's nice. Go back through the ties here and then just push it down, make sure it's flat. There. Alright, that takes care of that. So I didn't use this up like I thought I would, so I'll just pour it back in here. I like using a wide tub when I'm ballasting so it's easy to get into the ballast. Now I'll do the beige mix. Got two of them that I'll just mix together. Sometimes what I'll do is I really like the fine level. Notice that this was medium, and so this was a little thicker. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll mix the two together, and I very well could have. I don't remember exactly. Let me go through here again just to make sure. See some rocks on the ties here. So the nice thing about ballasting, you can never really get too much ballast in there, because if you do, you just spread it on down. And then if you get to the end of the track, then you just push it off over the track. Alright, so let me show you how this looks. You get a little bit closer view of the track there. So see how you get the rocks off the ties, but you still fill it around the ties very nicely. So that's how that yard looks. Okay, now we'll keep going. And then I can get into showing you how I do the gluing part. So again, I'm just going to go through with a fairly liberal application of the ballast, because I've done this before, so I kind of know how much it takes. Cover the inside and between the rail, and then the outsides. This ballast is going to go right up next to the fascia there. Okay, I might need a little more on that end. Especially when you've got road bed, it's okay to cover the ties fairly heavily, because then it just slopes down. But even here, you'll have enough where you can get pretty good coverage. You don't have to worry about getting too much in there. Okay, now I'm going to start with that and work my way this way out of the turnout. So you can see I kind of just blend it with the where the BN ballast left off here. Just keep pushing it down. This fine ballast works really well to get in between the ties. I really like it. And here I'm going to have it run up right up against this concrete pad for the diesel shop. Now, later what I might do, I'm not going to do this tonight, is eventually I want to fill this entire like yard area with ballast, as opposed to like asphalt or something else. So it'll just be like a gravel lot there. But probably not going to do it tonight. No, I should say, I'm definitely not going to do it tonight. Because I just want to get this part covered, and that way I can do that trick that I mentioned where I glue the ballast and then paint the, or get the paint off the top. Okay, so that's done. Now we're going to move into our last area over here. I really like these little tablespoon, or these cough syrup cups, because you can just tap it in, you work along, works really nice. Here I'm going to put a little heavier application of ballast around there because it's a switch where we split off. And then work through this turnout. We'll go down the spur a little ways on the edge here, and we'll put some around the edge of that turnout. We'll do the inside there. Okay, I think that'll work. Let's kind of bring that up in there a little bit. Okay, now I'm actually going to start from this in here. The second level makes this a little tricky on this part. That's why I don't really, or another reason I don't really like double deck layouts. Okay. So this is going to be fun. I get in there as much as we can to flatten it out. So this part of the track is where I used to have the entrance to my diesel shops. On this end, I had all the locomotives coming out, and it was really annoying because then you had to bring them back, pass through here, and then back all the way around to the yard. And now I just have the access on the other side of the yard. Or, yeah, so going out there, so you can go right into the yard. Works a lot better. So one thing that I would mention is, don't be afraid to make changes to your layout if they're really going to help you and really make things a lot better. What was that? I saw a saying today. What did it say? Don't be afraid to get rid of the good to bring in something great or something like that. So that's exactly what this is all about. It's like, well, it was okay before. I had trains running, etc. But I really wanted to make it better. So, why not change up some things a little bit now and then? As long as you're not completely stalling on what your goals are, like if you want to do op sessions or whatever, then you might not want to be constantly working on your layout, but like little changes like this are okay. So again, here I'm trying to get the ballast out of that part so I can put the ground throw there. Okay. So sometimes when I've got more track to do, I'll split this up, and it's okay to do it. Where I'll do like painting one night, and then I'll let it dry or whatever, and then I'll come back and do the ballast. It's totally fine, and you can still scrape up the paint or get it off somehow. But if you have a smaller project like this, something that you can just do in an evening, really quick, sometimes it's nice to just be able to do the paint and the ballast at the same time, get it done with, and then it works pretty well. Alright, I think, and then I'm going to flatten that out. I'm going to make sure that you don't want the ballast to come up over the ties when it's supposed to be going down like that, so you want to be careful. This is the time to even it out, level it out, because it could get annoying later when you're trying to run your trains or trying to clean your track. Okay, well, you know what? We just have one more spur to do, and then we're done. So let's go ahead and pour this back in here. Okay. Just do this spur here. And the reason I like to do my spurs in different colors, it's just kind of a way to show that, you know, hey, this might have been done at a different time from the rest of the track, or it might just have different gravel ballast, because it's not the main line. It doesn't need the same kind of ballast as the rest of the railroad, etc. It's just a neat way to differentiate the industrial areas, give it a little different look. And sometimes with the spurs, I don't put as much ballast because, you know, you might want to add some weeds, or just realize that the railroad is probably not going to put as much ballast in the industrial areas because it's not the main line. Just doesn't need that much attention. So I think I will add a little bit more right in that area. So sometimes I don't worry if I've got, you know, a little gap between the ties, or it looks a little low. So for an industrial area, it's totally fine. Now I know I'm going to have an industry right here, so I want to make sure this doesn't get too close, too far out. So I'm going to come around and put that ballast over there. One thing I need to do over here is add some, I'm probably just going to put some, what are those called? Just little rail stops that go on the rail for the end of that one. Alright, I think that's good. So now we're done with that. Well, that's great. Now I've still got plenty of ballast. It's always a good idea, I think, to have some extra ballast on hand. You never know when you're going to have something that you just need to tidy up, or when you're doing scenery later, or what else? You know, you might have a piece of ballast come loose that you need to repair later. One note about, I always like to do my ballast shortly after I lay my track, because the ballast really keeps the track in place and holds it there. The glue is good, don't get me wrong, but the ballast is really what holds everything together. So I really like to try to get in and get that ballast in there as soon as possible. Now's a good time to kind of go back and look over everything. Say, okay, did I get everything ballasted the way I wanted? Do I have all these annoying rocks off the track, etc.? just a good time to check over everything, because the next step is going to be the glue, and that's kind of permanent. But like I showed you when I ripped up this track to put this in, it is fairly easy to take it back up, but obviously don't want to have to do that if you can help it. So let's see, this one I forgot to clean up. That's why it's always good to go through and do a once over. Tidy that up a little bit there. Okay, make sure that ballast is out of there. Okay, like I said, I always come back through and clean these out later, so it should be good to go. Okay, well, I think that's how I want it to look. Everything looks good there. Got our turnouts working. A little bit better. Alright, so yeah, sorry this is a little bit longer video, but we're almost done. We're on the home stretch. So, now the only thing we have left is to glue. So I do a two-part thing with my glue. What I do first is I go through with the water bottle and I wet down all the ballast. This is a mixture of tap water and a little bit of, just a couple drops of detergent, or sorry, not detergent, well, like dish soap. And then so the dish soap kind of helps create a little bit, or helps to get the glue into the ballast more. And then the other step is the glue mix that I use, and I'll show you how I do that since my bottle is empty. So it's a two-part mixture. So what I'll do first is I'll go ahead and I'll wet all of the ballast here, just spray it, soak it really good. This is the other advantage of dealing with real gravel ballast, is that you don't have to worry about it flying around. I've dealt with woodland scenics before, and that stuff drives me crazy. So this stuff you just wet down, it stays in place. Perfect. And so what I'll do is, these little areas where I put a little bit of ballast combined with the old track, is I'll go through and I'll even wet and glue that. Never hurts to add a little bit more glue, You want your ballast to stay down, right? The other thing is wetting this helps the glue spread better, and it just spreads out so it doesn't get stuck in one stream as you put it down. So it really works well. Alright, so one of my friends taught me this mixture. What I do is I use a little bit of Elmer's glue, and then I use a little bit of this windshield washer fluid. The windshield washer fluid, I can show it to you here. Let's say, see, it doesn't have the, well, anyways, the windshield washer fluid has a little bit of alcohol in it, and so that's one of the things that you want to do when you're doing ballast down, is you want some alcohol, that again helps spread it a little bit. And so the windshield washer fluid is essentially the water and alcohol mixture that you need, but it's a really cheap alcohol to get. And so what I do is, I think it's about half and half. I'm trying to remember. So I'll just pour in, it might be 40-60, 40% glue, 60% windshield washer fluid stuff. So we'll stop there. I used to have a bottle that had the measurements on there. Yeah. Anyways, and what I use is one of these condiment dispensers. It works really great because it's just a nice little bottle, and it's got this this little cap that spreads it out really nice. Okay, so then I'll add our windshield washer fluid. There we go. So there's our mixture. Now, the interesting thing about this is even though it's blue in color, the ballast doesn't turn blue. This just stays the same color it was before. Kind of like adding Windex to paint. So now we just shake it up really good. Nice. Okay, kind of like that. Looks good. Shake it a little bit more. While I'm shaking it, I'm going to go past with just one more application of spraying this stuff down. After I do this, we need to let it dry overnight. It's a lot of wetness, and so like I'll check on this in the morning, and it should be all dry and everything will be rock solid. Okay. So then what I do with this is I just pour a nice little stream over the tracks. I go on the inside and the outside. Try to cover everything really, really well. See how smooth that comes out? It's perfect. Then once again, we be careful when we get down to the switch. I'm going to make sure to get these glued well at the bumping post ends. Yeah, and don't be afraid to get this on stuff. I mean, it just dries clear and actually works pretty well. I just realized I went through a switch there. Well, again, we'll make sure to clean that out really well. But yeah, I usually like to stop just short of the turnout. Make sure that you're not gluing that stuff down. Put a little bit of glue over this switch that existed before, like I mentioned. Try to get just a little bit of glue in there. Okay, now do this. This extra ballast over here. The nice thing is when you're trying to avoid the switches getting it in there is you've got the ties that kind of help block the spread of the glue in that little area. So that works out pretty well. Alright, I think we got it. I think that's good. And then, you know, you can always test, and if you got some loose ballast, you go back and you add some more glue. Okay. So now we used about half that mixture, and then just close the cap, and I got it for next time. Then what I do is I go through and spray it one more time, lightly, just to make sure that glue is spreading around like it should. You want it to spread out, soak in. That's the job of that glue. I see a spot here that I want to pour some more glue on. Okay. When in doubt, add the glue. Now, spray a little bit more there. Okay. Now, here's the trick. Let me get a paper towel. For this, you want to make sure you have some decently long fingernails for. What you do is you just take your thumbnail on the top of the rail and you clean it off. And so you got the paint just comes off like that. And then I usually try to kind of keep it in this paper towel as much as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just try to get most of the paint off as much as I can, knowing that I'll probably have to come back and clean it off more later anyways. But this is the nice thing about doing the paint and the ballast really close together, because then the paint is fresh and it's really easy to take off with the glue and the water that you just applied. Yeah. It just gets a little messy. Again, this is a little trick that I picked up from a friend of mine. Turnouts are a little tricky, but doable. There. Okay, I'm going to give my right thumb a little rest and use my left thumb. So like I mentioned earlier, probably my last video, I use Atlas track here for this job, but I really do like the micro engineering weathered track, because then you don't have to, usually really don't have to paint it, or if you do, you don't have to pay as much attention to get the size of the rail. So but this isn't bad either. Okay, I think I got the main things. So now I'll show you, this is what it looks like after I got all the rail off. Obviously need to wash my thumbs or all the paint off the rail. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay, that looks good. So yeah, that's how you do it. And then if you look really closely, see how nice and shiny that top of rail looks. You look at the side of the rail, and the top is nice and shiny, just like it should be in real life. Really good results. Obviously the flooding isn't prototypical, but in about 12 hours it'll be dry and rock solid, like I said, and you'll be ready to run. So I'll just tell you right now, the next step that I'm going to do once it dries, this is what I like to use for cleaning my track, is this Sandflex hand block. This looks like that, so I'll just rub it through there, clean it off really good, and then obviously I'm going to add the ground throws. that I have. These are just Caboose Industry ground throws that I like. So I'll add those in their spots, and then I'll be ready to roll. So, and I can put all my stuff back, and then I can do some other scenery later. So yeah, that's all there is to it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Again, sorry for the noise with the painting and that it was a little bit longer, but I really just wanted to show you the process, and I had to go through the whole thing to get to the trick that I have for cleaning the paint off after you ballast. So really wanted to show that to you. Let me see if we have any other questions. Nope, doesn't look like it. All right. Well, have a good rest of your evening, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to this video in the Meadow Sub, and I'll see you around next time.